Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Romano. In today's video, we are going to discuss what makes someone very successful and how do you spot those successful people out there. Because success has nothing to do with a monetary gain. It actually has to do with a lot more on how you think. And for those people who they're not happy with themselves, or they want to get someplace but they don't know how to get there, please watch this video because I'm going to show you how I did. Throughout time, you have people in history that somehow became famous. And I'm going to walk you through on each of those people and what made those people. See, I also studied psychology and social science in college, and I used that information to continue to gain because I realized that people in our society, they have great minds, and you may have a great mind too, you just don't realize it. The issue is how do you take yourself from point C to point A? And that's very important. Since I'm a little kid, I always knew I wanted to become a doctor. But when you're 5 years old, 3 years old, you don't know what type of doctor. I thought a medical doctor was a doctor. And then finally, until my grandmother told me, well, no, Anthony, there's many types of doctors. A doctor of finance, a doctor of history, a literature, doctor of science, etc. And so the older I got, I realized those people who had PhDs, their personality. And I also learned about the people at work who somehow always got ahead of everyone else, but they were not the smartest. And I was very puzzled by this throughout my time and my career and throughout my life. I realized when I was completing my research for my PhD study, and I also have 2 MBAs, one in finance, one in risk management, but also at that time I started to realize what made someone very successful. Success has nothing to do if you're making billions every year or millions and you're making all this money and you have a BMW or a Mercedes in the driveway and a big fancy house. No, success has nothing to do with that. Success has something to do with being able to focus on your dream and making it come reality, and not having mental blocks. So those people who are religious and they've studied the Buddhas and the Vedic and all these organizations in Tibet, the first thing they teach you is to let go of your wealth. The second thing they teach you is they try to teach you this by actually preparing yourself, is to get rid of your mental blocks. So in military boot camp, that's one of the first things that they teach you, and they basically make you get rid of all your personal belongings, and they give you what they want. And they condition you over 3-4 months to think without those mental blocks, and they want you to think the way they want you to think. And so if you can actually learn that in boot camp, then you could actually change yourself now. All you have to do is have a mental picture of what you want in your life, write it down, and write it down how you're going to get there. Before we continue the video, please remember, if you like my content and you want to say thank you, Anthony, please do thumbs up. It's right there. It's 2 seconds, it's done, and it will let me know that you like this content so that I can make more content based on your reaction. Thank you so much. So let's say if you don't know what you want to do. Well, you do know what you want to do, you're just not sure of which one. Well, you have to analyze yourself and what you're good at. Because people who are good at financial trading, people who are good at analyzation, they are born like that. You are not going to teach anybody to have a certain trait, okay? The success trait, you're born that way, and that's what I believe. And so you have to know how to grab that gene and push it through your life and change your mind. Because, as I mentioned, some people are born with that ability, whether they're not scared of anything, or you tell them no and they freak out, almost like the guy from Colombian cartel, Narco. If you told him no, he would freak out. If you told Joan Crawford no, she would freak out. If you told Leona Helmsley no, she would freak out. If you told J.P. Morgan no, he would freak out. And so all these famous people throughout our history, there's many other people such as Mussolini. Mussolini, you couldn't tell him no either. He would beat up his first grade school teacher and his parents. So these people are very important to study. Now, if you're HR and you're looking to hire someone to be the CEO, the fact is that you need to get past the dominant person. Do not promote the dominant person. Those are the people that you don't want to hire. You need to hire people that are specialists and know what they're doing and know what they are good at. Remember, the US government, when they created the atomic bomb, they separated those teams into little groups. And they did not let those teams and little groups kind of mingle with each other. They kept them totally separate. And that was really important. And they wanted everybody to contribute. And they did not want a particular leader in that group. So how do you take what you want in life and make it happen? You need to write everything down, and you need to write down what your mental blocks are. So in my case, I knew what my mental blocks were, and I got rid of them. I also studied famous people out there who were highly successful, movie stars, singers, and I studied why they were successful. I studied why Leona Helmsley would get what she wanted, or Joan Crawford, or any people with those personalities. It doesn't mean that they're so smart. No, it's that they don't have mental blocks. And so all these people throughout history, they somehow either were born with no mental blocks, or, I mean, you can't blame the parents, because my Italian school teacher, her kids, they were a total waste of life, but the parents were so put together and so elegant. So it's not parenting. I believe that people are born the way they are. Okay? And so if you're born with no mental blocks, or basically you get triggered when the person says no to you and you freak out. Now, I know what my issues are, but I don't know what your issues are. The fact is, our drive in life, you have to figure out what that is. I don't want to talk about sexual psychology, but everything revolves around sex. We are the biggest sex organ in anywhere, is our mind. And my sexual thrill ride is learning and analyzing people and situations. I was born the analyst, unfortunately, and it's the worst thing to have to date, for me to have to date someone, because I literally am analyzing every little thing you do. For those people that date me, please don't watch this video. And because I have this intrepid interest, this sexual thrill ride to understand people, it's helped me throughout my life, because I was able to go to high school, then to college, then to graduate school. I did another graduate degree, and then the PhD program. And after the PhD program, I couldn't just put the books down. I had to continue doing research. And some people, they could actually stop after they complete a PhD, but those of you who received a PhD, you'll realize you can't. And it's because your sexual thrill ride is learning and understanding situations. There was a PhD student who was a criminal investigator at a police department, and he was studying a topic that I just couldn't believe that he was studying that. But because of who I am, I understood why he was studying that, and his sexual thrill ride was understanding why people do what they do. And that's why he excelled so much on learning everything he had to do to become that investigator. And then, of course, on his PhD, he proved whatever he needed to prove, whatever his dissertation was. In my case, I had this fascination of why is it that some traders on the trading floor are successful at making money and others weren't. I would measure the different traders on the trading floor based on where they went to school, how old they were, who their parents were, and their nationality. I didn't care if they were articulated, if they had good grades or not. They would tell me. I would actually ask a lot of questions. And the fact is, if you go to a Harvard or Yale or an Ivy League school, you definitely have good grades. And so I knew a lot of them had a short-term memory, because in order to take a test and pass, you need a short-term memory. But to be visual and to be to improve what you know, you have to have a long-term memory, and your short-term memory is not going to be the best. I mean, yes, there's people that are in between, that they have a long-term memory and a short-term memory, but the fact is that people that are very visual, they're going to have a long-term memory. So look at Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was able to analyze what he had to do in his brain and visualize it. So I believe that Albert Einstein was highly successful because he was able to persevere and focus on what he had to do. Now, in your case, if you want to become that attorney, or whatever it is, you need to wash away those mental blocks. Because people like Joan Crawford, she didn't have a mental block. If you told her no, she would go nuts. Look at the owner of Tesla. So if he hadn't made his first $1 billion in PayPal, and you didn't know who he was, and he said he wanted to become a rocket scientist and make a vehicle that goes to space, you would think he's psychotic. Or if you didn't know who he was, and he said, well, I want to make electric cars, and I want to have everyone in America and the world drive an electric car. Well, you would think he's nuts. But the fact is that because he made his first $1 billion, now he's qualified to get investment capital to create that rocket company, to create that electric car company, just by looking at what he did. So he took an automobile industry, turned it upside down, when at a time you had to be a really big company to be successful and to be profitable, because it was a very small niche industry, but yet it's so big. And so industries that are old and they've been around for many decades, generations, it is very hard to get into those industries because there's a lot of mental blocks. But the owner of Tesla, Ian, he doesn't have a mental block. I honestly believe that if you say no to him, he sees red like I do. If you say, no, Anthony, you can't become a doctor, well, they should have never said that, because look what happened. For example, I was a commercial real estate broker, and people says you don't want to become a commercial real estate broker because it's very hard to sell and start in the industry. So because of that, I went into the commercial real estate sector. And then after 6 months, I received one of my hardest exclusive agreements. And that was to sell a church property in Manhattan on the Upper West Side. Everyone told me, you don't want it, you're never going to sell it. I sold it in 6 months. Everyone told me that there's no church company that has that type of money. You need to find a developer. Well, unfortunately, developers were not going to pay that kind of money. Secondly, it was landmarked, meaning you couldn't knock it down. Yeah, you could build on top, but based on the value per square foot, how much you could build, it wasn't profitable for a big developer, especially on the Upper West Side in the 90s. So, of course, what did I do? I didn't stop trying to show that property. I did everything that I had to do to sell it. Make sense? So I got rid of my mental blocks. In another situation, I started my first business, and my first business was, I don't want to give everything away because I could charge for that information, but in a way, I had to learn who would buy my product. And I had to figure out what was the best solution on how to find that product, how to find the person that would use that product. It was actually service back then. And I knew that the service industry, it doesn't matter the economy, people always need that type of service. So what I did was I used an indirect marketing gimmick, and I created havoc in every single development where I lived. I went from house to house, not personally. I used the indirect marketing gimmick to do that. And I would scan every single neighborhood who used that product and who didn't. And then I would focus on those people that use those products. And that's how I created that 150 customer base that I created. So if you say no to me, I flip out and I focus all my energy into what I have to do. And that's what someone successful does. Somehow they have ambition. I don't know if it's called ambition, but it's energy. And so, for example, if I told my personal trainer that he'll never get big, well, that guy will see red and he will flip out and he'll do everything he has to do to get bigger. That type of person is very successful because they're able to focus with discipline on what they have to do. Just like the owner of Tesla. The owner of Tesla will focus on what he has to do to persevere in creating that product. And any type of obstacles, he knows that he'll conquer. So these type of people who are not just CEOs. For example, a hedge fund manager. A hedge fund manager either is someone that used to work for the investment bank as a trader or on the IPO desk dealing with a lot of capital, and that person knew where to find that capital, and he was able to either find a trader to trade with and raise the capital to create the hedge fund, or the hedge fund manager could have been a trader since he's younger or she's younger and perfected their trading strategy. For those of you who are younger, if you want to trade and make a lot of money, you should start trading now when you're young and perfect what you know. Never stop learning, always improve. A hedge fund manager either could have been someone that was a trader in an investment bank and he was sick and tired of getting fired every 2.5 years on average, according to the Book of Occupational Titles. Or he could have been a trader, young, and had an interest in it. Or he could have lost his job and says, I'm fed up with trying to find a job, and he started trading himself. A lot of people do this. And then, of course, somehow he raised capital. But when you become a business owner, there are a lot of blocks that you have to get through. And to become successful, you need to conquer every type of mental block possible. And so that's the video. That's what I want you to learn, is to get rid of your mental blocks. In military boot camp, they get rid of your personal belongings, they give you a uniform, and they drill you for 3-4 months in what you need to learn and how they want you to think. So there was also a remarkable person that I met. He was actually a client, and we started to talk. We had about 3 hours chit-chat. And him, his kids, and stuff like that were there. And while we were talking, I was analyzing his personality, and I couldn't understand why he was continually asking about the prices, and he was so fixated on how much it was going to cost. The fact is that when his wife and kids left, he told me, he said, Anthony, he was homeless for almost 8 years. And over those 8 years, he just gave up. And when he gave up, when he told me this, I realized what was going to happen next. He got rid of his mental blocks. And he opened a magazine and he saw an article for mortgage school, and he went to mortgage school. It just happened to be that it was at the right time, 2008, when the markets were going to collapse, and so interest rates were going to go down, and the mortgage brokers started to make a lot of money going to each house, as he did. He walked from each house to gain customers to refinance their mortgage. And that's how he became so successful. He got rid of his mental blocks, all his obstacles, why he wasn't succeeding, why he was homeless, everything. And he succeeded. And so as a yogi, someone in Tibet or someone learning the Hindu religion, that's what they teach you. They say you have to focus on what you have to do, get rid of your mental blocks and focus on one thing. Meditation, that's what they teach you, yoga, etc. You don't realize that yoga will help you, or you don't realize what it really is for. It's simply to teach you to get rid of your mental blocks. And so those people who think they have to go to school to be successful, you don't have to. If you have an idea and you want to make money or you want to do something, you do it. You don't need a college degree to do that. I did not need a college degree to do what I wanted to do. But of course, I got this sexual thrill ride to learn everything, to analyze everything, and to understand people. And in business, that's very important, because if you're a salesman, you have to know who you're sitting in front of. Whether that person is this type of personality or that type of personality. And how to speak to that person. Don't try to sell the product to them. The product will sell itself. You simply have to open them up and draw them in. And that's creating trust as a salesman. And so for those of you who have mental blocks, please get rid of them. And for those of you who want to do YouTube, let's say, I had a number of mental blocks about starting YouTube. It took me 5 years until I saw a guy named Sean on Think Media. And you know what he said? You just gotta press record. And that's exactly what I did. So I want to thank you so much for watching my video. Please remember, if you want to subscribe to my channel because you like my content, please do so. Do thumbs up. If you want to say thank you, Anthony, it's right there. And please remember, if you have questions, I'll make future videos just for you. Just send it to the live chat. And if you have any people, friends, family that want to watch this video, that's really important to share it, you could use the share button right there. Thank you so much.